At 9:02 a.m., with the sun throwing hard rectangles across the 43rd floor carpet, the CEO asked if she wanted coffee and then never sent for it. Dana Mercer clocked the move, the kind of small insult that floated on the surface of bigger ones. She stood there in Nathan Cole's glass office, hands at her sides, wondering why the skyline of Baltimore always looked sharper from the wrong side of a conversation. The inner harbor glinted like it was made of cut metal. Inside, everything was soft. Suede chairs, whisper-quiet HVAC, the lemon cleaner that meant the assistants had been through early. "Have a seat," Nathan said, already sitting, already smiling the way managers smile when the decision is old and your surprise is the only fresh thing in the room. She lowered herself into the suede and kept her bag on her shoulder. "I won't take much of your time," he said, sliding a slim gray folder across his desk with 2 fingers. "There's been a strategic realignment. The board wants new energy and systems architecture, new energy." She almost laughed. 26 years in, she was still called a force by every vendor who'd tried to cut corners and failed in the face of her reviews. Inside Helix Sentinel Systems, force had always sounded nicer in emails than in meetings where her work slid under someone else's name. "What is this?" she asked, though she already knew. "Involuntary separation," he said. "Without cause, obviously. Generous package. 12-month salary, healthcare continuation, a transition consultant of your choice. We'll announce it as a retirement. A celebration of your contributions." He said celebration like it was a coupon. Dana didn't touch the folder. The lemon-cleaned air made her eyes sting. Down on Pratt Street, a traffic light cycled red to green and no one moved. "Why now?" she said. He folded his hands, glanced at the wall screen where a muted cable business channel churned graphics. "Board wants a fresh look for our defense contracts. It's about optics as much as innovation. You're postponing a demo on Monday and you're calling this optics?" She kept her tone even. "The compression kernel is not plug and play. You know that, we have people," he said, and she thought, "I train them." He leaned forward, elbows on oak. "Let's talk about your future, Dana. You've been an asset, assets depreciate," she said. "People don't," he gave the tolerant chuckle reserved for difficult engineers. "You'll be taken care of, taken care of." The phrase landed in her chest like a hand on a dog's head. "Coffee?" he added, glancing at the door, remembering the courtesy too late. "I'm good," he tapped the folder. "There's an NDA in there, standard. We really hope you'll sign today so we can include you in the town hall this afternoon. We're doing a gratitude segment," he smiled again. "Helix is a family. Families don't ask for NDAs to say thank you," she thought. She let a slow breath slide out through her nose. "I'll need time to review, of course," Nathan said, which meant no. "But the sooner we finalize, the smoother it is for everyone, for everyone." Not for her. Behind Nathan, his view of the harbor made her think of all the views she had paid for in other people's offices. Products that worked, deadlines that didn't slip, fires she put out at 3 a.m. with a thermos and stubbornness. Somewhere in the building, an espresso machine hissed, a sound that felt like a punchline. "You've built something remarkable," he went on, voice softening. "You should be proud. Am I included in the patent celebration slides?" she asked, light as paper. He blinked. A small, practiced pause. "You know legal manages those credits," she stood. The chair released her with a sigh. "Then legal can manage this too." Nathan rose, hands open. "Dana, we don't want this to be adversarial. I've spent 2 decades avoiding adversarial," she said, and heard how calm she sounded and was grateful for it. "I'm simply the person who made the thing you're about to demo." He worked his jaw as if there might be better words lodged in his cheeks. "The board is unanimous. Please understand." She nodded like she did understand, understood him, understood the timing, understood the calculus that said a woman could be foundational and still be removable like drywall. She picked up the folder without opening it. "HR will reach out," he said, relieved to be back in script. "And Dana, thank you." Truly, she let the silence hold him there for a beat. Then she stepped into the hallway's colder air past a framed, backlit poster, "Innovate to Elevate." The letters were 5 feet tall, and none of them had her name on them. On her way to the elevator, she passed the bullpen. Heads dipped. Some rose and nodded, the solemn head bobs new Americans give each other at funerals and Friday stand-ups. At the glass conference room, she caught a flash of Evan Pike, her former deputy, walking a whiteboard across a problem he didn't understand, talking fast over a junior engineer's sentence. Dana's palm hovered over the elevator button steady. Her phone vibrated. A text from Maya in systems heard something weird. "You okay?" Dana typed, "I'm fine." She erased it and replaced it with, "We'll talk later." In the elevator, the chrome reflected a woman in a navy blazer whose hair needed trimming, whose eyes did. She pressed lobby and laughed once, quietly, because she suddenly remembered the green accordion folder at home, the one she'd filed and refilled and never thrown away even when the reorgs came with cake. In it, a provisional patent with her name at the top and a clause tucked in by a lawyer who'd listened when she said she didn't trust family. On Pratt Street, October air slipped under her blazer. The city smelled like salt and diesel. She could read the text of her future now. Meetings in smaller rooms, quieter money, the relief of not having to raise her hand to be remembered. Or another script entirely. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. She let it go to voicemail. She started walking toward the garage, folder pressed flat against her ribs, already mentally flipping to the page with the signature and the line that mattered, the line that would become, by operation of the contract, a fuse. By midnight, Dana's apartment looked like an after-hours lab. Papers spread across the dining table, the blue glow of her laptop pooling over cold takeout noodles. She hadn't bothered with lights, only the steady flash from the harbor below, cranes moving containers like slow chess pieces. The gray folder from Nathan sat unopened at one edge, the kind of thing that could ruin a night. But next to it was something older, a green accordion folder with a cracked plastic spine labeled in her handwriting, Mercer Prototype V12 2015. Inside lay a single sheet she'd nearly forgotten, the provisional patent. Her name first, Helix Sentinel, listed only as a contractual licensee. And under that, in small type, a clause she'd insisted on a decade ago when Helix tried to poach her design before it worked. All proprietary rights revert to the primary inventor upon termination of employment without cause, effective within 72 hours of notice. The thought hit her like espresso, burning, clarifying, and dangerous. She picked up her phone and scrolled through contacts until she found Marissa Klein, the intellectual property attorney she'd used once years ago when Helix made noises about shared innovation. Marissa answered on the second ring, her voice rough with sleep. "Dana Mercer. Jesus, it's midnight, I know. I need to confirm something. If it's Helix, you picked a hell of a time. What's going on? They fired me today. Without cause, check your email, I'm sending you a clause." Dana snapped a photo of the page and sent it. For a moment, there was only the hum of her refrigerator and the faint ping from the harbor foghorn. Then Marissa's tone sharpened. "Is this clause active, filed, notarized, and countersigned by legal?" "They probably forgot it existed. Dana, that means the core patent, your compression kernel, reverts entirely to you after 72 hours. That's what I thought. And their Pentagon demo is Monday morning." Silence. Then laughter, quick, incredulous. "You realize what this means," Marissa said. "If they present using your code, that's infringement. Triple damages. You could own the building by Tuesday." Dana leaned back in her chair, eyes on the skyline. Her heart beat slow and heavy, like it was thinking before she did. "I don't want the building," she said quietly. "I want acknowledgement. You can get both," Marissa replied. "Do nothing for 72 hours. The clause triggers automatically. Don't file, don't warn them. Let them cross the line first. And if they settle before that, then you name your price. License fees, public credit, whatever you want. But you have to stay cold, Dana. No emails. No rants on LinkedIn." Dana almost smiled. "You think I'd do that? You'd be surprised what people do after corporate funerals." She hung up, poured 2 fingers of bourbon, and reread the clause again under the kitchen light. 72 hours. Across the water, a container ship's horn moaned, long and mournful. Dana pictured the boardroom panic when the patent notice flipped on the USPTO database, her name glowing where Helix Sentinel Systems had been. For the first time in months, she felt something close to control. She closed the folder, shut her laptop, and whispered to the empty room, "Let's see who remembers the rules." By Friday afternoon, Helix Sentinel Systems was vibrating under its own silence. Dana wasn't there to see it, but she could feel it in the pulse of her phone, the sudden flurry of half-written texts, the LinkedIn pings, the subject lines with words like transition, so sorry, and wow, big changes. At 3:17 p.m., one message stood out. Maya Torres, a junior systems engineer Dana had mentored since her internship, wrote, "Hey, weird question. Did you update something on the patent? Legal just went nuclear." Dana read it twice. Her lips parted into a thin, astonished smile. The USPTO database must have rolled over. The clause had triggered, and her name now sat where Helix Sentinel once did. She typed back, "No updates from me." Why? The GC called an emergency meeting. People are freaking out. They said something about ownership discrepancy. Dana didn't reply. She stared at her bourbon glass, half-melted ice tracing lines on the wood. Her pulse wasn't racing, it was steady, methodical. That scared her more than anger ever had. Across town, in Helix's legal department, panic was blooming like mold in the walls. A junior attorney had caught it first, an automated IP alert showing a change in ownership for quantum compression kernel v38. Within an hour, screenshots had circulated from cubicle to cubicle, whispered with the same disbelief people reserve for scandal. She really did it. At 4:02, Dana's phone buzzed again, an unfamiliar number, DC. Area code. OMS. Mercer, this is Paul Levinson, outside counsel for Helix Sentinel. There seems to be a misunderstanding regarding the patent listing that went live today. She let the pause stretch. A misunderstanding, yes. Our client believes it's a clerical issue. Obviously, Helix holds full rights to. Dana cut him off, voice even. I'd suggest you read the employment agreement. Paragraph 14b. Reversion clause, MS. Mercer, I'm sure we can handle this amicably. Paul, she said, tasting his name, calm as winter. You're calling because you already know it's not clerical. 72 hours. That's all it took, he hesitated. Our legal team would appreciate a meeting perhaps early next week. I'm unavailable, she said. Enjoy your weekend, she hung up. The bourbon had gone warm. Outside, dusk was gathering over the harbor, cranes throwing skeletal shadows across the water. For a moment, she wanted to tell someone, anyone, that she'd done it. That she'd finally outmaneuvered the place that had erased her one too many times. But when she opened her messages, the words didn't come. Instead, she scrolled through old emails, years of project threads, good job team, notes, patents where her name appeared third or not at all. The loneliness of it hit her then. She had won a kind of power that no one would celebrate with her. Another message arrived from Evan Pike, her former deputy, now acting director. I saw the news. Hope you're not planning to burn the place down. Think about your legacy, Dana. She stared at it for a long time before replying, I already am. Then she turned her phone face down, leaned back in her chair, and listened to the quiet. Somewhere downtown, a company she'd built was cracking open from the inside, and for the first time in 26 years, she didn't have to fix it. By Saturday dusk, the harbor was painted in bruised light, the sky heavy with storm. Dana sat outside a cafe on Pratt Street, watching seagulls dive over the water while the city's glass towers mirrored the coming rain. She had her phone face down beside her espresso. Every vibration now felt like a loaded gun. When it finally buzzed, she didn't check right away. She let it hum once, twice, then flipped it over. Admiral Robert Gaines. She hadn't spoken to him in over 3 years, not since the Helix board had paraded him around as their defense credibility mascot, a retired Navy man with medals and an aura of command that comforted investors. He'd always liked her, though. Said she reminded him of the engineers who kept ships alive. She swiped to answer. Admiral Dana Mercer, came the voice, steady as the tide. You've made quite a wave, she exhaled softly. I was wondering how long before someone from the board called. 48 hours, he said. Nathan wanted to go through channels. I don't like channels, neither do I, she said. He chuckled low. Helix is in a bind. The lawyers confirmed it, you own the patent. They need a solution before the market opens Monday, so I heard, she said. I'm calling to see if there's a way through this that doesn't burn the ship down, he said. You've got leverage, Dana. Use it smart, I intend to. Good. What do you want? The question stopped her. Not what do you want to fix, or what will it take to calm things down, just what do you want? She leaned forward, elbow on the cafe table. I want acknowledgement. Publicly. Credit where it was due 10 years ago. I want a board seat, voting, not honorary. I want a licensing deal, $20 million upfront, 8% royalties going forward. And an apology from Nathan, signed and released to the press. Gaines let out a low whistle. That's a tall order, it's a fair one, she said. You realize, he said slowly, if we go that route, Nathan's done. He'll never survive the optics. He made his choice, she said. Now I'm making mine, the Admiral's voice softened. You sure this isn't about revenge? Dana's jaw tightened. It's about precedent. He was silent for a beat, the faint static of wind filling the space between them. I'll bring it to the board, he said finally. But you'll have to send me something in writing. I already have, she said. Check your personal inbox. Deadline's Wednesday, 5 p.m. After that, I talked to Vector Defense. That got a low grunt. You're not bluffing, I never was. Rain began to fall, thin at first, then heavy. She didn't move, letting it soak her coat as she watched the harbor blur into silver. You've always been the quiet one in the room, Gaines said. Didn't think you had a knife under the table. Everyone does, Dana said. Most just never get to use it. The call ended. She sat for a long moment, phone in her palm, pulse steady again. Then she opened her email draft, subject line, licensing terms effective immediately. Below it, a single sentence, please consider this Helix Sentinel's final opportunity to act in good faith. She hit send. The storm broke over Baltimore hard and clean. By Monday morning, the Helix Sentinel Tower had the tension of a sealed reactor. The lobby screens, normally streaming highlight reels of innovation milestones, were dark. The scheduled 9:00 a.m. investor livestream for the Pentagon demo had vanished from the company site. Dana sat in her apartment with CNN running quietly on her laptop, a mug of black coffee cooling beside her. The headline ribbon scrolled, Helix Sentinel postpones key defense presentation amid internal review, shares down 11%. She didn't smile. She just watched. The camera cut to a correspondent outside Helix HQ, wind pulling at her hair. Sources tell us the delay stems from an unexpected intellectual property dispute involving the firm's proprietary compression kernel. The former chief architect, Dana Mercer, declined to comment. Dana muted the sound. Her phone buzzed again, voicemail from Nathan Cole. She pressed play. Dana, look, this isn't good for anyone. The board's spooked, investors are panicking. Let's sit down, just you and me. We can work something out before this thing hits the wires any harder. His tone had changed, less CEO, more man underwater. She deleted it without responding. Then came another call, Maya. Hey, Maya said, voice low, anxious. They're making us sign statements that say all IP was developed under company supervision. I told them I would. HR looked like they wanted to kill me. Dana's stomach tightened. Don't sign anything. Not one word. They said if I don't, I'll lose my bonus. And maybe my job, Maya, Dana said softly, they're bluffing. This is panic management. They'll need every engineer they have once the auditors come in. You really think so? I know so. Just breathe, okay? You did the right thing. When the call ended, Dana sat there staring at her own reflection in the black laptop screen. The satisfaction she thought she'd feel was nowhere. What sat in her chest instead was a cold, twisting unease. She hadn't meant to break the company, only to claim what was hers. But Helix had been her life's work, too. Another alert pinged, Reuters update. Helix IP ownership dispute raises questions about governance and federal contracts. Her phone buzzed again. Marissa Klein, her attorney. They blinked, Marissa said without preamble. Gaines called. The board's meeting in 30 minutes. They're throwing numbers around, trying to salvage the demo. Let them throw, Dana said quietly. They'll probably call again. Don't answer unless it's him. Cole's desperate, he's already floated firing legal for failing to safeguard assets. Of course he did, Dana murmured. He's always needed someone to carry the blame, Marissa paused. You okay? You sound tired. I'm fine, but she was. She could feel something hollowing out inside her, a small, steady ache between triumph and grief. That evening, when the sun dropped behind the skyline, her phone vibrated again. Another voicemail. Nathan's voice, strained and quieter this time. Please, Dana. Don't destroy what we built. She stared at the phone for a long time, then turned it face down and walked to the window. The harbor lights shimmered like static, the reflection of a world she'd spent decades electrifying. Not destroy, she whispered to the glass. Just rewire. Tuesday morning came wrapped in gray fog and the smell of salt from the harbor. Dana hadn't slept. Her apartment was a battlefield of coffee cups and open legal pads. The news networks were still circling Helix Sentinel like vultures, each report digging deeper into what one anchor now called the Mercer clause. At 9:12 a.m., a knock came at her door, 3 quick raps, too decisive to be a neighbor. When she opened it, Nathan Cole stood there. No entourage, no driver, just him in a rumpled suit and an expensive coat that looked wrong on a man this undone. His eyes were rimmed red, his voice carefully casual. "Can I come in?" Dana hesitated, then stepped aside. "You found the address." "I had to," he said, closing the door behind him. "You won't take my calls." "I heard them," she said, gesturing to the pile of unanswered voicemails on her phone. Didn't feel like rehearsing the same apology 3 different ways. Nathan looked around the apartment, taking in the view of the harbor through her window. "You live well, I built well," she said. He turned back to her, dropping the charm. "We need to end this." "You're killing the company, Dana," she folded her arms. "I'm enforcing a contract. If that kills it, maybe it deserves to die." Nathan ran a hand through his hair, exhaling hard. "We both know this wasn't your intention. Come back to the table. I'll make you an offer. I already made mine," she said. 20 million, royalties, a voting seat, and an apology public and signed. He scoffed. "You think the board will let me grovel on camera? You want to humiliate me?" "I want the truth recorded somewhere other than a memory," she said quietly. "That's not humiliation. That's history." He stared at her. "You used to care about the team. The mission, I still do," she said. "That's why I built the Colonel right instead of fast. That's why we kept contracts when competitors did. But I stopped mistaking mission for loyalty." Nathan took a step closer. "Be reasonable. You can't run a company like this. It'll consume you. Take the buyout. 5 million. Walk away, Clint." Dana's face didn't change. "I spent more than that building what you sold to defense clients with my name buried under yours. I'm not for sale, Nathan. I license. On my terms." He laughed once bitter. "You're going to blow up everything just to feel seen?" She met his eyes, voice low. No, I'm going to make sure the next woman who builds something doesn't have to burn it to be credited." Nathan's expression cracked, just a flicker of guilt or maybe fear. "You're giving me a deadline tomorrow. 5 p.m. Sign term sheet or I call Vector Defense. They've been trying to poach me for years." He stared at her, jaw working. "You wouldn't." Dana stepped forward, her calm so sharp it felt like glass. "You know I would." Nathan turned, hesitated at the door. "You're making a mistake." "Maybe," she said. "But it'll be mine." When the door shut, Dana leaned against it, trembling for the first time. The silence pressed in. For 26 years, she'd been the woman who solved crises. Now she was one, and she felt terrifyingly alive. By Tuesday night, the city was drowned in fog and rumor. Inside Dana's apartment, the only light came from her laptop screen and the glow of her phone, each new email a piece of theater from the collapsing empire she'd helped build. At 8:03 p.m., an email from Helix Legal arrived. Subject line: proposed resolution. Marissa called before Dana could open it. "Don't respond yet." "I already got the same one." "Let me guess," Dana said, rubbing her eyes. "A good faith offer, 5 million buyout, NDA, no acknowledgement." "They're pretending it's generous." Dana laughed, the sound brittle. "That's a rounding error in their R&D budget." "Exactly." "They think you're angry, not strategic," Marissa said. "Hold your position. The clock's your friend." Outside, a ship's horn groaned through the harbor mist. Dana leaned back, exhaustion coiling through her. "You ever think about how men call you emotional the second you stop being convenient?" "All the time," Marissa said. "But in your case, emotions leverage. They don't know what you'll do next." "Fear's expensive." Another ping, this one from Evan Pike, her former deputy. The subject line simply read, "A word of advice." She opened it despite herself. "You're overplaying your hand. Helix can outlast you in court for years. Take the money, walk away, salvage what's left of your reputation." She typed a response, deleted it, then typed again. "You always were efficient at thinking short-term, Evan." Oh, she didn't send it. Instead, she stared at the draft until her phone buzzed again, Maya this time, voice trembling. "They're saying you're negotiating with Vector Defense," Maya whispered. "Nathan's losing it." He screamed at Gordon in the hallway. "Let him scream," Dana said softly. "People are scared, Dana. Half the team's afraid they'll lose their jobs if the demo collapses." The guilt hit her like a wave. "I didn't mean for them to get caught in this." "Then fix it," Maya said, a plea buried under loyalty. You can fix anything. When the call ended, Dana stared at the water outside. The cranes looked skeletal in the fog, the city reflected like broken circuitry. She whispered to herself, fix it for who? At 10:19 p.m., another email arrived, this one from Mercer again. Board divided. Gaines pushing your terms. Cole resisting. Stay offline, we're close. Attached was a screenshot. Reuters headline, Helix IP scandal deepens as stock slides 19%. Dana closed the laptop and poured a glass of wine, but the victory tasted metallic. The power she held felt less like triumph and more like a loaded weapon she couldn't set down. Then, amid the notifications, one email stopped her cold. From Ben Cho, a quiet hardware tech she'd trained years ago. They should have treated you better. Whatever happens, some of us remember who built this place. The words undid her in ways nothing else had. She sat in the dark, hands trembling over the keyboard, tears she didn't expect welling and falling silently. She typed back slowly, carefully, thank you, Ben. Keep building the right way. Then she hit send and exhaled. The world outside her window was silent again, except for the faint hum of a company bleeding out in real time and a woman learning the price of being right. By Wednesday morning, the Baltimore skyline gleamed with deceptive calm. Inside Helix Sentinel's boardroom, the air was thick enough to slice. The board had been in closed session for 3 hours, and every phone on the 39th floor was locked away, Gaines' orders. Nathan Cole sat at the far end of the long walnut table, collar open, hair slightly damp from stress. His eyes darted between the projection screen and the men and women who no longer met his gaze. Let me be clear, Gaines said, his voice steady, almost soft. If we present the demo without resolving Mercer's claim, we're knowingly infringing. That's triple damages. The auditors are already sniffing. Investors want a statement by end of day. She's bluffing, Nathan said, leaning forward. You think she wants to fight $1 billion company in court? She's an engineer, not a CEO, Gaines sighed. She doesn't need to fight. She just needs to wait. The claw's already triggered. She owns the kernel. You can't win this with denial, Nathan. You can only make it more expensive. A younger board member, Serena Alcott, chimed in. Our stock's down 24% in 2 days. If we don't settle, I'm prepared to call for a change in leadership. Nathan stared at her, speechless. Seconded, said another voice. The silence that followed felt surgical, clean, precise, final. Gaines looked down the table. We vote at noon. Either we sign Mercer's terms or Nathan resigns. There's no third option. Nathan opened his mouth, closed it, then stood abruptly. You're all out of your minds. He walked out, slamming the glass door hard enough to rattle the frame. At 11:07 a.m., Dana's phone rang. It was Marissa. It's done, she said, voice tight with disbelief. They're signing. All your terms. The whole package. Dana closed her eyes. Even the apology, even that. Gaines pushed it through. Nathan's, well, he's finished. Dana didn't speak for a moment. The sound of a distant siren floated through her open window, rising and falling like a memory of panic. You okay? Marissa asked. I thought I'd feel something, Dana said. A relief, maybe. Or triumph and nothing. Just quiet, that's the sound of them realizing you were right, Marissa said gently. A few minutes later, her inbox pinged. The subject line read, Executed Term Sheet, Mercer Licensing Agreement. Dana opened it, scanning each line. The wire transfer confirmation. The royalty structure. The signed apology scanned in PDF. Nathan's signature was small, unsteady. Her eyes landed on the closing line of the document. Helix Sentinel acknowledges Dana Mercer as the principal inventor of the quantum compression kernel and welcomes her to the board of directors, effective immediately. She let out a slow breath that trembled halfway through. For 26 years, she'd wanted her name to mean something, to last longer than the slides in someone else's deck. And now it did. Marissa's voice crackled again through the phone. Dana, you just won. Yeah, Dana whispered. But I'm not sure what I lost to get here. She stood, looking out at the harbor, where fog was lifting off the water in thin silver ribbons. The city moved on below, buses, traffic, cranes, indifferent to the fact that somewhere in one high-rise, a woman had finally rewritten the rules. By 4:53 p.m., both signatures were in. The deal was sealed. Dana placed her phone face down, closed her eyes, and let the adrenaline drain away. In the end, victory didn't roar. It exhaled. By Thursday morning, Dana's name was everywhere. Every tech blog, business channel, and defense contractor forum was running some variation of the same headline. Helix Sentinel names Dana Mercer as principal inventor amid IP scandal, CEO steps down. She woke to her phone vibrating nonstop on the nightstand, notifications stacking faster than she could swipe them away. LinkedIn requests. Journalists. Recruiters. Former colleagues who hadn't spoken to her in years suddenly rediscovering admiration. Her inbox overflowed with subject lines like "Congratulations, you showed them and you're a legend." But mixed in were quieter ones: "Please help, they're cutting staff, they're blaming the engineers." Dana sat up slowly, rubbing her temples. The world had flipped overnight, but it didn't feel like triumph. It felt like debris after an explosion. A knock came at her door. She froze, half expecting another reporter. But when she opened it, she found Maya, standing in a wrinkled blazer, dark circles under her eyes, clutching a paper cup of coffee. "You didn't answer your phone," Maya said, stepping inside without waiting. "I've been busy not being a headline," Dana said. "They're firing people," Maya said. "Half the systems team. Evan resigned before they could push him out. Legal's gutting whole departments just to stabilize investor confidence." Dana's chest tightened. "Gaines didn't tell me that," Maya gave a bitter laugh. "They don't tell board members the human parts. Just the numbers." Dana crossed her arms. "I didn't want this to hurt the engineers." "You know that?" "I know," Maya said, her voice cracking. "But they do. To them, you're the one who torched the company." Dana turned away, staring out the window toward the harbor. The morning light reflected off the glass towers like the surface of a broken mirror. "Maybe that's the price of changing things. Or maybe it's what happens when nobody listens until you light a match," Maya said quietly. The words landed hard. Dana's phone buzzed again, this time a message from Admiral Gaines. "Press release live. Congratulations, Director Mercer. The board appreciates your professionalism. We'll need you in DC next week for the briefing with Defense Procurement." She read it twice, then looked back at Maya. "He's moving on like nothing happened." "That's what they do," Maya said. "They survive every fire because someone else burns first." Dana sighed. "Maybe it's time someone taught them what survival actually costs." Maya tilted her head. "What are you going to do?" Dana didn't answer right away. Instead, she opened her laptop, pulled up an email draft she'd started days ago. Subject line: Proposal, Independent Inventor Advocacy Program. She turned the screen toward Maya. "I'm starting this. A mentorship network. Legal guidance for people like us, builders, not talkers." Maya's eyes widened. "You're serious?" "Completely." For the first time that week, Dana smiled, not the sharp smile of victory, but something smaller, steadier. "If I can't change the system from inside," she said, "I'll build a new one outside." When Maya left, Dana sat by the window, watching the harbor cranes lift their slow burdens. The city hummed beneath her, a machine that never stopped, no matter who got caught in its gears. Her name was finally in the lights. Now she had to decide what to do with it. The first Helix Sentinel board meeting Dana attended as a director was held on a clear Monday morning in Washington, D.C. The air inside the boardroom felt colder than it should have, overconditioned, controlled, precise. She took her seat near the end of the table, her new nameplate gleaming. Dana Mercer, Director, Systems Architecture and Ethics Oversight. The irony wasn't lost on her. The same company that erased her now wanted her to oversee its integrity. Around her, the room filled with the practiced choreography of power. Admiral Gaines at the head, calm and unreadable. Serena Alcott scrolling through her tablet with military precision. A new CTO, Victor Harlan, all youth and confidence, arranging his slides. The hum of tension beneath polite chatter was unmistakable. Gaines cleared his throat. "Let's begin. First order of business, review of the new quantum-resistant encryption roadmap." He nodded at Victor. "You're up." Victor stood, clicking through a deck so sleek it could have been built by marketing. "We project full quantum defense integration within 18 months, he said, voice crisp. "Prototype testing begins in Q2. Implementation across defense networks by end of next fiscal year." Dana's eyebrows rose slightly. 18 months. It took 2 years just to stabilize her compression kernel under military standards, and that was before the added complexity of quantum security. She let him finish, waited for the self-congratulations to die down, then spoke softly. Victor, could you walk us through your projected throughput ratio at scale, specifically under operational encryption loads? He blinked, caught off guard. We're still modeling that. But preliminary results, modeling's not validation, Dana interrupted. If your simulation assumes ideal thermal coefficients, you'll miss the instability at high-frequency modulation. The Navy won't buy vaporware. The silence that followed was long and brittle. Serena shifted in her chair. Gaines leaned back, watching her with faint amusement. Victor flushed. With respect, MS. Mercer, we've modernized our approach. Things move faster now, I'm sure they do, she said evenly. But physics hasn't, a soft murmur ran down the table. Dana didn't flinch. For decades, she'd been the voice people talked over. Now every word landed. Gaines finally broke the tension. Victor, get her your test data by Friday. If the numbers don't check out, we delay the roadmap. Victor's jaw tightened, but he nodded. Understood. After the meeting, Gaines caught up to her in the hallway. You enjoy shaking cages, don't you? Dana smiled faintly. Only the ones that rattle when you touch them. He laughed, but his eyes were serious. Careful. These people still think you're a story, not a survivor. I'm fine with that, she said. Stories outlast companies. He studied her for a moment, then nodded. You just might keep this place honest. When he left, Dana stood alone in the corridor, watching the reflection of her own name on the frosted glass door. Director. A title she had earned not by climbing ladders, but by burning one down and building another from the ashes. Still, she could feel the old machinery grinding beneath the surface, ego, greed, shortcuts. The same system that once erased her was still running. But this time she had a vote, and she intended to use it. Months later, spring had begun to paint Baltimore in soft light and salt air. The headlines had moved on. Helix Sentinel scandal had become a case study for law schools and a cautionary slide in every HR seminar about intellectual property. But for Dana, the noise had faded into something quieter, purpose, maybe. Her days were split between Helix board meetings and her newest project, a mentorship collective she'd quietly launched under the name The Builders Trust, a nonprofit helping inventors, especially women and first-generation engineers, navigate patents before their companies could swallow them. The small office sat in a converted row house near Fells Point. A hand-painted sign hung over the door. Inside, the walls were covered with blueprints and framed patent certificates donated by alumni of her mentorship program. The air smelled faintly of coffee and printer ink. That afternoon, she sat with Sophie Tran, a 28-year-old robotics engineer from Seattle whose startup had just secured its first seed round. Sophie's hands trembled slightly as she flipped through her patent paperwork. They said they'd file it for me, Sophie said. Part of the funding package. Dana leaned forward, calm but firm. Did you sign anything? Just a preliminary agreement, ownership vesting tied to milestones. Dana smiled gently. That's how they take it. You think you're getting support, what you're really giving up is control. Sophie looked down. They told me not to worry. Said they'd take care of all the legal stuff. Dana's voice softened. Sophie, they'll fire you the day you cost more than you're worth. Protect yourself first. There was a long pause. Sophie finally nodded. You sound like someone who's been there. Dana's smile was small and sad. I have. The mentorship sessions had become the highlight of her week. Each young engineer reminded her of the version of herself who once stayed late in the Helix labs, hungry, brilliant, and naive enough to believe merit would always win. That evening, as Sophie left with her folder tucked under one arm, Dana sat back at her desk and looked out at the harbor. A soft rain began to fall, dimpling the water. She thought about Nathan, his resignation, his silence. About Maya, who'd eventually left Helix too, joining a startup in Austin. About the team that had been collateral damage in a war of recognition. Her laptop pinged a news alert. Rumors of Helix acquisition surface, Vector Defense reportedly in talks. Dana stared at the headline, the irony curling at the edges of her mouth. Vector, the very company she'd once threatened to join, was circling now like a shark sensing blood. As she clicked the screen dark. Maybe it didn't matter anymore. Helix would live or die by the same rules that had built it: speed, greed, and reinvention. Her phone buzzed. A text from Maya just read about Vector. Hope you're okay, Dana typed back, I'm good. Teaching others to build better. Then she stood, switched off the lights, and locked the office. Outside, the rain had stopped. The street smelled clean, almost new. For the first time in years, she didn't feel like she was running from anything. She was building again, this time her own way. 2 years later, the city had changed, and so had Dana. Helix Sentinel no longer dominated the skyline the way it once had. The logo was smaller now, the building sold, the name soon to be absorbed into a new one, Vector Helix Technologies, following a $1.2 billion acquisition deal. The press called it a strategic merger, those who knew better called it survival. Dana was back in Washington for the final board meeting before the sale closed. The conference room had been redecorated with Vector's sterile gray branding, as if the past could be painted over with neutral tones. Gaines sat at the head of the table, older now, the lines in his face deepened by corporate war. When the vote passed unanimous, anticlimactic, he rose slowly and looked toward Dana. "Congratulations, Director Mercer," he said. "You'll walk away very well from this." Dana gave a polite nod. "We all will," but she knew well didn't mean right, it just meant pay. When the meeting ended, Gaines approached her privately. "You've done something most people in this room never could," he said. "You made them look in a mirror." "I didn't plan to," Dana replied. "I just stopped pretending not to see." He smiled faintly. "Same thing sometimes." Before leaving, she walked past the new CEO's office, temporary glass walls, temporary people. On the desk sat a photo of Nathan Cole, Helix's old leader, now long gone from the industry. She'd heard he'd moved to Colorado, consulting for renewable startups. A quiet exile. She hadn't expected to see him again. But that evening, at the modest farewell reception the board hosted in a D.C. hotel lounge, she did. Nathan was there, gray at the temples, thinner, wearing a suit that didn't quite fit anymore. He waited until the crowd thinned before approaching. "I didn't think you'd show," she said. He shrugged. "Curiosity's a bad habit." He looked around the room, then back at her. "You won, Dana. You were right. I wasn't fair." She studied him, not out of anger, but to see what was left of the man who once held her career in his hand. "You could have been," she said. "You just didn't know how." Nathan's eyes softened. "I'm sorry," he said, quiet, real this time. For all of it, for a moment, she almost pitied him. "Almost." Thank you," she said. "It matters even now." He nodded, finished his drink, and left without another word. When the night wound down, Dana slipped away from the noise, crossing the quiet D.C. streets to a late-night diner she'd loved since grad school. Inside, the lights were warm, the air thick with coffee and the clink of plates. At a corner booth sat Sophie Tran, now the proud founder of a growing robotics company. She rose, grinning, and handed Dana an envelope. "Filed and approved," Sophie said. "My first patent." "With my name first." Dana smiled, her chest tightening with something like peace. "That's how it should be." They sat for a while, sharing coffee and stories, the easy conversation of two people who'd survived the same battlefield. When Sophie left, Dana lingered, tracing her finger over the edge of the patent envelope. Outside, the harbor lights flickered like circuits. She thought of all the women and men who'd built things that bore someone else's name, and how many still would. She stood, leaving cash on the counter, and stepped out into the cool night. The city buzzed around her, alive and unbothered. For the first time in decades, she didn't feel like part of a machine. She felt like herself again, flawed, tired, free. As she walked toward the water, she thought of the one lesson she wished she'd learned sooner: value yourself first. The rest is just negotiation. And somewhere between the lights and the tide, the world felt finally wide open.